Welcome to San Miguel TV. This is a special San Miguel TV live right now. It's Saturday, October the 4th, and this live is called Your Jewels Are in Your Journey. So, pretty soon you'll be seeing my guest, Mr. Elijah Lewis. He's the one that authored the book, that penned this book right here, which the book itself is jewels in itself. There's many different jewels. So, um, we're going to talk about a little bit of our history, where we crossed paths, how I found out about him, where our lives have crossed paths. I know the brother's father, and shout out to Mr. Russell Lewis, who's mentioned in this book, which I think is a beautiful, beautiful part of the book. This was actually purchased earlier this year, so it's been a long time coming. If you can see there, I had to go directly to the brother and say, let me get a copy of this. He said to Brother Miguel, may you find many jewels along your journey and continue to be the jewel that you are. Thanks for the support and continue the great work that you're doing. Elijah Lewis, March 15th, 2025. So, like I said, long time coming. This is Your Jewels Are in Your Journey, life lessons to lead you to your optimal self. Right there. We're going to get this thing going, man, as we get this started. Now, let me see if I can get all the chats. Live chat is all messages. All right. So I hope everything sounds good and I'm coming through loud and clear. I want to actually go through some of these chapters. We're not going to give away the whole book, obviously, but life lessons to your optimal self. Copyright 2023, Elijah Lewis, all rights reserved. So I'm be very careful about what I don't want to give too much away. But 130 pages, 135, counting the about the author, Mr. Elijah Lewis, motivational speaker, alumni, a few places. I'll let you tell him. The brother could speak very well for himself once we get him on. Um, yeah, about 130. There's a lot of different chapters in here that, I mean, once you get through everything, there's even places to take notes, so you can actually take notes as you follow along and see what you got after you read each chapter. You can write down what you took from it. So I'm gonna read some of that too, what I took from it. From chapter 1, starting with and never take life for granted. Chapter 1. If like I could talk about it and think about like what the brother was like saying about taking life for granted, it's like the little things, just if you have basic necessities, pretty much, um, you know. But we used to be in the ICGJC, the Israelite Church of God in Jesus Christ, and when I got to that part of the book, it wasn't a long part, but it was the one that I could relate to the most. That's I believe it was chapter 5. Um, a good amount of it went talked about it, but I want the brother to tell his story too, instead of me going through it. Because when I read chapter 5, is don't let others put you in a box. Yeah, that's the one. Page 59. Yeah, don't let other people put you in a box. That's one of the chapters. So part of your jewels, man. Jewel is a lesson, pretty much. I drop a gem on you, I drop a jewel on you. You always hear that. That's actually slang for a lesson. Is a jewel. That's the first time I ever heard that. For sure. That it was like a. That's my definition though. How I heard it was probably through some hip hop music. Yo, Jewel, man, I got this Jewel for you. Let me see. Yep, we got a bunch of stuff here. All right, we here, man. We here. Thank you for coming through San Miguel TV. Another live edition. We're gonna talk to Mr. Elijah Lewis. You know, special guest. It's an honor. Thank you for coming through, sir. I see you. How you doing?
I'm doing good, brother. How you doing?
Good, good, man. Good to see you. I'm glad we got to do this. Thank you for coming on and spending this time with me and the viewers of San Miguel TV. I was going through some of your book. You know, I was telling them I don't want to give away too much because it's definitely worth the wait. You know, it's. I mean, for something that like you, one of your chapters I was talking about, like, and one of the main messages from your book, just to get it started, is taking life for granted. I think people take books for granted. You know.
Dude.
Yeah, but there's a lot that I learned about you. I didn't really know you in the ICGJC, which is how we crossed paths, and how I know your father also. And even then, I didn't really get to know you guys until after we escaped. Which it's ironic how those things happen in life. And here we are, man. And I want to introduce you as Elijah Lewis, the author of your jewels are in your journey. And I'll let you speak for yourself too, because I know you got alumni status. I know you are world renowned. I saw a photo with you and the president of Liberia, right?
Yep. Yes, sir. Yep.
Yeah. So go ahead, tell the audience who you are, and go ahead. You have the floor.
All right. Well, Brother Miguel, thank you for having me on. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. As Brother Miguel said, I am Elijah Lewis. I am the author of Your Jewels Are in Your Journey, Life Lessons Lead to Your Optimal Self. A little bit of background, as he stated, yes, I was a member of the ICGJC. My so-called Hebrew name was Alayawa, which according to them, to the Lashawan Kodash, or holy tongue as they put it, or for all we know, something like say it might be the BHI Pig Latin.
Right.
That means, according to them, that means Yahweh is my God or Yahweh is my power. I spent 10 years in the ICGJC with my parents. We came into the church in June 21st, 2003, when I was 6 years old. And I stayed until my father took me out the church in 2013. He stayed until 2012, and my mother stayed in 2013 until 2013 as well. After that, of course, I'm a graduate of Tuskegee University and Morgan State University. I got my bachelor's in mechanical engineering, my master's in cybersecurity. Currently, I'm working with the Navy in Indian Head, Maryland, NAVC. So that's kind of been my journey post IGJC. But
Yeah.
yeah, in 2022, I started writing this book. Just wanted to give people the tools they need to be their optimal selves, but also know that it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And one of the
Yeah.
main topics and source of inspiration that actually made me want to write this book, and I know we're definitely going to dive into it,
Yeah.
was part of my journey in the ICGJC. So
Right.
that was one experience that I definitely wanted to talk about, because I don't really share that experience of being in a cult with people, but it
Right.
is part of my journey, and it doesn't define
Yeah.
my journey, but definitely in
It's
addition to
it's
that. Oh,
it's
go
all
ahead.
actually sorry. It's actually only one chapter in the book. You know.
Yeah, but I made sure I definitely wanted to discuss that, because when I was talking about my experiences and people ask me what was your inspiration for writing this book, I tell them, I say, I know what it's like to be lost on my journey, because tough, you, brother Miguel, you ask anybody, they've going through the horror of being in a cult, you will definitely end up being lost because that's like a maze.
Yeah,
It's easy to get in, but it's hard to get out. And so
right.
really that was one point of emphasis that I wanted to talk about.
Yeah,
But in addition to that, I just want to tell people that hey, you know, it's not only the life lessons we learn, but it's the people that we meet on our journey that inspire us to be better. And ultimately, when we find ourselves, we know that we ourselves are jewels. So yeah, it's all
right.
about getting readers to their optimal self and getting to that destination. And yeah, that's a little bit about me and about my book, and of course, a little backstory of my life in ICGJC.
Yeah, and it's a whole journey, and that's what life is. Like this book breaks down certain parts of a young man's life. You know, I noticed you have. I mean, you have biblical scriptures in here. You have African proverbs in here. You have quotes from movies, Disney movies in here.
Yeah,
You know
yeah,
that all makes up like just the time that you lived, the way that you grew up. And you go through different chapters of it. I'm like, wow, this is a lot. You have a lot to say, and it's always good to just capture the moment. And the best way it's a book. This is just I want when is your next one? I want to know if there's one already in the works. I want to know about all of that because yeah, I definitely think that this was great, and I love to see like growth, as I seen like since 2015, I believe I really started to get to know you. So it's been about 10 years now.
hmm
So I remember you were pretty young. I remember your father. He stood out. He was outspoken. It was in a group that was created on Facebook, and I saw people's different journeys take them to different places after leaving the cult. To me, it's a big important part of my life because I spent most of my young adulthood in there. So it's different point of views. I know you were very young. You said when you came in there, and then you just left in 2013. By 2015, we saw the ones that were really paying attention saw that there were things were crumbling. There was a lot of fake promises made,
yeah,
and we were taken for a ride. And I tried to be as honest about that too. Obviously, my whole channel was started because of that. But
right.
that's actually have gone into different directions too because it's just a part of my life that was important, and I learned a life lesson from it, many life lessons from it, and I used it as a way, as motivation to spin something that was negative into a positive thing. And I like to highlight people that have done that also. Like yourself. I think you did it the best way. That really doesn't involve it. Like I still somehow involve my channel, and I speak up to people that are recently leaving because there are people that are just like leaving now, and they
Yes,
reach out to me, so I'm like, I got to still talk about this thing, but it's not like we were. I know I definitely was somewhat traumatized. Not to get all go get so emotional about it because it's just human to feel certain things about you getting.
yes,
You're getting told something's gonna happen, then it doesn't happen. That's like that's not a good feeling. That's like imagine constantly going through that for so long and then hoping like some people do maybe with a father figure. I'll be there and the father never shows up. It's kind of like in that
yep,
situation. And I look at you and your father because your father is a mentor figure, period. And I know you mentioned him as the mentor in your life, which is beautiful. And I think that really is important too. Even if your father was, there and in the wrong, a certain place that's just wasn't the right place, your father was still there protecting you the whole time, and
absolutely.
making sure. And I thought just like everybody else that this was a positive thing. We weren't in the streets doing anything negative besides handing out literature and trying to help people. And we were coming from a certain angle that was a religious angle, and it's an emotional appeal too. And they try to make it, us versus them. That's very
Yes,
important within cults. So
yeah,
it's almost like they don't show the positive side of what I see in you, and that you could become something in this society. And all of this talk that, oh, the white man wants to keep me down. It's like, well, at the same time, yeah, maybe there's some truth to that, but there's also some light at the end of the tunnel. And what that I think it's important for a cult to make it seem like anything outside is going to be hopeless, when really
Yes,
we were kind of in a hopeless place. And when we got out of it, it was obvious, it was time for us to move on in our life and put that behind us. And yeah, so I want that's why I wanted to have you on. Now, you also talk about we talked about the Disney quotes. um, and the reason why is because I noticed when you mentioned your father as a mentor, you chose a movie that and a scene from the movie Lion King where it's the father speaking to a
yes,
young king. It's the king, not just a father figure, but a king.
yeah,
Kind of like, letting his soon to be king, who's a young prince, his son, telling him about life and giving him a jewel, which is like, it was a beautiful start to your book when it talks about not taking life for granted. If you can speak about that in your father, and I just made that connection, and I'm like, I noticed how he's talking about his father, and then the scene in the Lion King is a father with his son. So I want to hear more about that because I think your father is a great man that needs to be recognized a lot in this book.
absolutely. Well, one of the things to that point, I talk in my book. I really talk about how my dad is my role model and how he's been such a huge influence in guiding me on my journey. And when you bring up the Lion King, it's the same way when you see that dynamic between Mufasa and Simba. Like he's
Man.
guiding and getting Simba ready to take over when he is ready to become king.
Right.
So for me, it's fun. And it's funny too. When my dad and I went to Liberia back in May, we kept jokingly saying Mufasa and Simba are coming home. So so that was
Yeah.
his joke between us as we finally went back to the continent. We finally went back to the
Right.
motherland, Africa. We're not talking about Jerusalem. I'm sorry if there anybody from the ICGJC or any Israelite group listening to this in secret, but we did
Right.
not go to Jerusalem. We went to the motherland called Africa. That's where we went. So,
Right.
but
Right.
but no, on a serious note, but yeah, to that point, it just really speaks of how you need to have somebody, a role model in your life to guide you on your journey. Because if you don't have that role model figure, you'll be prone to doing all types of wrong and misdoings on your journey. Now you're going to make
True.
mistakes because you're still human, but it's
Right.
always important to have that person in your corner, whether it's a parent, coach, teacher, whoever, who can guide you on the right path. So, when I reference the Lion King, I mentioned it a couple scenes. One I mentioned was how you don't take life for granted, how Mufasa told Simba that everything exists together in
Right.
life. And also when I did chapter 2, I said you can learn from your mistakes because there's a scene when Simba's getting ready to go back to Pride Rock to take over as king. That
Right.
scene when Rafiki comes and says, he's like going back means I have to change my past. Like I've been running from it from so long, and then he hits him with the head with that stick. He's like,
Right.
why'd you do that for? It's like it doesn't matter. It's in the past. He's like, but it still hurts. He goes, yes, the past can hurt. He's like, but the way I see it, you can either run from it or learn from it. So the point of it is, it's like if you have that mentor figure that you mentioned, not only
Mhm.
can you get the proper guidance, but they can also teach you that, hey, you need to get back on your path and don't run from your mistakes. Learn from the mistakes and grow from it. Because if you keep running from it, it's not going to get any better. It's like that old saying, wherever you go, there you are. So it's like, you
Yeah.
can run from your
Right.
mistakes all you want, but if you don't take the time to learn from your mistakes and heal from them, you're still going to be stuck in that same place. So, I
Right.
think for my dad, he really did a great job of just guiding me on my journey, especially into manhood. And really, he did a great job taking over the reins, uh, especially during the latter years when I was at the ICJC. When I joined the academy, I talk about in my book, I was on academic probation. I graduated with a 2.58 GPA. You read my book, Brother Miguel. I told my dad that if I didn't go to college, I'd work at Walmart. And I referenced the scene, may he rest in peace, of Malcolm Jamal Warner and Bill Cosby from the Cosby Show when he said, I want to get a, I'm not trying to go to college. I want to be regular people like everybody else. So,
Right. Right.
really, even though we had that same dynamic, I think the beauty of what my dad did was that he he saw the potential in me when I didn't see it in myself. And I think really being in the ICGJC did play a huge role in that, because we were so focused on the kingdom and, Christ coming back and, this world is evil. This world's going to be destroyed. It's like, you have to realize that unfortunately that's not happening. And two,
Yeah.
you have to figure out what you're going to do in this world while you're still here. You can't wait for some pie in the sky mentality. You have to handle your business while you're here right now. So he really
Right.
did a good job of reeling the reins back in and getting me back on track. And there's no discredit to my mother. My mother did a great job as well. She definitely deserves her credit as well. But especially from the perspective of learning how to become a man into manhood, I have to thank my father for that. So yeah, that's kind of why when and I land my plane here. When I watch like The Lion King, I always see that dynamic between Mufasa and Simba, kind of the same way between me and my dad.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, to have somebody right in front of you that you can see and that you admire and that's getting things done, that's always around, that you can count on, is a lot. Yeah, that's important. For somebody to feel, for a child to feel security in the world that is insecure. So yeah, that's great, man. I mean, coming from coming out of like middle school and high school, those are very key, like important times in a child, in a teenager becoming a man, and you start to really see what's important. Because I have a 15-year-old son, and I have to not only be the example, but also show him that he can do it himself. Because at the end of your book is you're essentially saying that you have to be the jewel yourself, which
Yes.
is perfect, because it all ties into what, just you going through life and having different chapters and life lessons. Because a jewel, you pretty much defined it initially as, from the beginning of the book, a jewel is a lesson.
Yes.
If you look at it like that, it's like life itself is a jewel. You're you know and you look at life also as not I started. I forgot what movie this is from, but I caught, like, I think it was like Eddie Murphy movie where he's like some type of religious figure, and he's bald and wears white. And
Hmm.
he says that if you think about life like in seasons, how there's 4 seasons in a year, so if you live 75 years, you're gonna have like 75 summers to enjoy. And it's like when you start really looking at it like that, and it starts to count down, it's like you really start to you know focus on what's more important in life, which is family, which is your child, your children, and their lives. Now that becomes your life, and as a father, as a parent. And everybody's not ready for that. We weren't ready. Some of us were coming in really young, and thinking that part of our life's mission is we got to have a baby right now, when we're not even ready to be on our own, but just by ourselves. We're
Exactly. Yeah.
barely coming out of our parents cribs. We didn't have time to go to school or anything like that after, especially once you're like in college or whatever, and they start making fun of you because you're learning. They start trying to make you feel bad because you're trying to get some education, and they consider it like, oh, it's tainted. It's that same mentality that you're not like us, and we don't get the white man's knowledge over here and all of that stuff. And it's like knowledge doesn't belong to anybody. It's like this stuff is objective, objective things that it's not belonging. It's not subjective. Subjective is, I think corn pops is the best cereal. That's
Right.
not objective. That can't be an objective thing. It's just like, how can you decide what's the best cereal? It's like, but so yeah, there's like basic things like that. Like everybody, like you listed food, shelter, and water in your book. You said like that's really like the basic things. This cult deprived us of some of those basic things too.
Yes. Absolutely.
And coming out of it now, I'm really like, oh, how much more is it important now for me to cherish those things and move forward? So why did you first write the book? What was the reason?
Well, I first wrote the book because there was a lot of experience that I went through that I didn't talk about, and mainly being in the ICJC was one of them. Even though I talk about my experiences, but actually it's just one chapter. I definitely wanted to talk about that as my journey because, I think one thing I found about writing this book again, Your Jewels and Your Journey, is that I find writing very therapeutic for me. And I think if you've ever been through any traumatic experience or any situation that really impacted you, a lot of times you think, okay, that was so long ago, it doesn't affect me, it doesn't bother me. I think when I finally wrote this book and really took the time to write about the experiences that I went through with school and the
Yeah.
ICGJC and growing up and things like that, it really allowed me to, as they say, like sit and be still and like think about all that I went through. Especially like
Yeah.
with the whole thing with the ICGJC. I mean, that I wrote this book in 2022, and that was like I left like was it 2013? So that's been about what that was like 9 years after I left, and it's like
Right.
okay, I think I'm. It's like okay, I think I'm straight. I've that was 9 years ago. That doesn't affect me. But when I was really writing about that, I had like just look at the book and just like man, I did not realize this was all. I mean, I realized it was going on, but I just
Yeah.
didn't realize because I was so young too that
Right.
this was affecting me. Because a lot of the stuff that you go through in childhood or adolescence, I think children and teenagers can understand when something is wrong, but I
Yeah.
think because you're so young, it's hard for you to truly
Yeah.
understand like the damage that's really being done to you until you become an adult. Because
And
what
one, and
happens?
once and once you sit down and start writing about it, you really start putting it together. I would imagine.
Yes,
Yeah.
and you realize, okay, how did I end up getting where I am today? And a lot of what happened in your childhood and your adolescence could be a reason why. So, for me, that was one reason why I wanted to write the book was just talk about the experiences that I went through because I think writing is a very healthy way to talk about your experiences. Because it was funny. I watched a YouTube video today, and they were talking about like what's the difference between like healing and coping. And the person said, "Well, like we all cope with something. Like people try different things to cope, whether it's they want to smoke something, drink
Right.
something,
Yeah.
food, whatever it is. They try to self-medicate. Writing to me is sort of like not just a way to cope with something, but it's like a kind of a way to heal too, because you're putting all your thoughts and emotion on paper. It's
Mm.
a way to release all of that that's been you've been keeping locked away for so long and not trying to tell anybody about. It's like a healthy way to release all that pain and emotion. So I
Yeah.
think that was one reason why I really wanted to write about that book. Not saying that I was walking around with all that pain and anger of the ICJC because I by that point I lived a good life post ICJC, but
Yeah.
I still think it was necessary because one, as you said, brother Miguel, you still got people in there who are just coming out now. You
Right.
have I've met other people who've gone through other various cults. Not necessarily Israelite cults. It could be Jehovah Witnesses, whatever group that
Mm.
they were a part of. They said, "Yeah, I know exactly what that's like." So
Right.
people are really dealing with on the topic of being in a cult, that pain and anguish. Like there's a lot of people, and it's something that's really not talked about even today. Like we talk about, abuse of different forms, but really it's almost like I still think talking about cults are like somewhat taboo a little bit. It's
Mm.
like, yeah, we talk about it, but it's like we kind of don't talk about it. But
Yeah.
there are a lot of people out there who have been through that painful experience and definitely want that healing and just need to know that it's not just them, that somebody went through this same experience they did and were able to come out on the other side about it. And I tell people, it's like I don't think you will ever truly be healed 100%, but I think you can go through the process of healing, that
Right.
it'll get better as time goes on if you're willing to take the right steps to do so, whether it's writing, talking to a therapist, whatever you need, as long as you're doing it in a healthy way, then I think you can get to a place of healing. You'll still have that effect of what you went through. It'll be like a scar that's healed, but you can
Right.
eventually get to that place of healing that you're desperately looking for. So that's
Yeah.
kind of my reason why I really wanted to write about that was mainly just writing about the experiences that I went through and just telling people that, you know, hey, you can find yourself on your journey. And like I said earlier, it's not how you start, it's how you finish.
Yeah, that's perfect because you were saying every day is an opportunity to get better. That was a part that I wrote down because after your chapters, you have the notes. I started taking notes, and I was like, "Oh, this is actually helping me understand what I just read a lot better." You know, because sometimes you read through it and you don't really get everything that you should. And so I wrote down that every day is an opportunity to get better. And writing takes it's not just you're not gonna write a book in one day. It's gonna take time. Everything takes time. So it's perfect. And then if you take life for granted, you may never see the value of getting better. You said, I love that line because let's say, you don't think and maybe you don't foresee anything happening, or getting better. And it's like you don't consider it. You might be so much in the moment, like you said, you don't consider there's tomorrow you can get better and try, you might have writer's block one day, and then
Yes.
you get better as you go. And then you mentioned the African proverb that the youth can run faster, but an elder knows the road. I love that
Yeah.
right there, man.
Thank
If
you.
you could just speak about that a little more and that whole process of letting things naturally just happen, and but also you being proactive about things, I love that. Yeah,
Appreciate it. Yeah, and
yeah,
then like I said earlier, like that whole African proverb you just mentioned, yeah, it just goes in context what we talked about earlier with the guidance factor of just having the right role model. And one of the things that truly stands out to me about my book is honestly when my elders tell me, "Hey, I read your book, I enjoyed it, it was a great read," and because I'm thinking from their perspective, it's like, okay, they've lived 50, 60, 70 years of life. It's like, why would they, why would they want to come to a soon to be 29-year-old for any guidance? But they tell me they love the book. And, I just appreciate them for taking the time to listen, because they do know the road. I mean,
yeah.
as a young person, we can, rip and run and do all these things, faster than they can, but they've had the experience. They've everything that we're doing now that we think they've never gone through. It's like they've been there, done that. So like they can tell us, hey, as you're going about this journey, you're young, but hey, don't watch out for this, watch out for that. Make sure you stay focused on your goal, on your purpose. And that's the main importance about that African proverb, which is giving reverence to the elders too, because
Right.
we live in
Yeah.
a society where the elders are almost viewed as like cast-offs, like just put them in a home and that's it. Just like, no,
Uh,
that's not correct. You don't just
right.
shun and put elders away. You're supposed to reverence and acknowledge their wisdom. So, but
Yeah.
yeah, and like you said, every day is opportunity to get better. That's what we're here for.
Yeah.
If you don't have that mentality, then you're just wasting time. Like how Muhammad Ali said, you if a man thinks the same way at 50 than he did at 20, he wasted 30 years of his life. So,
Mm,
there's always room that you're supposed to be growing and gaining more knowledge on your journey. And I even saw that what was it? Terrence Howard posted on Facebook, and I've seen this quote before. Be teachable. You're not always right. So and people who have that mentality is just like who always think they're right, never wrong. It's like you watch those people never grow. They always are at the same place. I mean, you
that's
know,
true.
perfect example. Since we talk about the ICJC, shoot, look at Taz.
Yeah.
Taz,
Perfect.
Taz was not teachable whatsoever.
No.
Everything he said out of his mouth, he thought he was right. Your typical narcissistic cult
Right.
leader, that was Taz. Taz Adakia, just no growth, no nothing, just but then again, look at the man was a ninth grade dropout. So it's like, hey, what can we truly expect? But hey,
Yeah. Yeah.
so
When you don't have so much confidence in yourself, you talk about positivity a lot too. When you don't have confidence in yourself, it may be due to a lack of support that you've had in your life, or you're just got lost somewhere along the way, and you didn't have the right father figures or role model in your life. So the people in the street become your role models, and the best way that they know how to get by is to try to hustle people. And
yeah,
they might not be the most intelligent and educated out there, but they know how to talk and they use the gift of gab to their advantage, and that's exactly what he was. And he fit the profile of a cult leader perfectly. Cult leaders are usually narcissistic sociopaths. It just fits that they fit like that job description is because it kind of seems like it is like a profession he just got into. It was perfectly designed because the men he was around were also scammers too. Not to get too much into that history, but it started off in Harlem, and it's just like a way where people. I know it made me feel intelligent. I came out of high school and didn't go into college or into anything extracurricular right away. Later on, I ended up doing other things, but at that time, yeah, I mean, it's like you're a young man. Maybe you don't care too much about going to college, and you don't know what you want to be. And then this thing comes along as positivity, false positivity, because they try to make it seem like, you see, we're into the Bible and we're not in the streets doing anything negative. They try to make that seem as a positive thing, but I think we were completely misguided. The religious aspect of it, I think, is another false thing, that it was just disastrous from the beginning. And I'm not against your right to religion and belief, but these things get taken to a certain extent, and it's like sometimes you might not be in reality. And, it's especially if it's a cult like what we were in, which is a doomsday cult. So they put a lot of pressure on you to become like to get things done in the organizations the right way now. And you have to, be so a part of it that it becomes your life and it becomes everything. And yeah, you lose yourself in the journey. But it's something that, to me, I look at it as temporarily, but there's still people in there, like we're saying. My cousin is still in there. I have friends that I had, good relationships with while we were in there. And then when you come out, of course, they have to shun you and cut you off like you're
Yep.
the enemy. It's complete isolation. All of that is what a cult does. And this is so much different from what I was always taught. This is not like how I grew up in the Catholic Church. You can call Catholicism a cult, definitely. It has elements of it. But what we were a part of was so much more time consuming, that I didn't see anything like that growing up. As my family were loose Catholics, believing in something that's pretty much harmless, even if you don't believe it's true or not. What these people do is they urgently make you feel like the earth is coming to an end. You got to be a part of this. It kind of
Yep.
disrupts your life, and that's the way that you describe life in this book is, it really shows how balanced things really are. And you might have bad days, and you don't have to consider it the end of the world. It's like you're going to have your bad days, you're going to have your good days. These people, their whole, like, being in a cult makes you think like you're just in a bad place, period, and there's no hope. But I look at what you've done. You said you're a graduate of Tuskegee.
Yes, sir. Yep.
What did you study there, and what
I
made you
studied.
go there? Like, how was that whole process? How much time did you spend, going to school? And
Yeah.
just tell me a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, so really, so Tuskegee really, so to answer your first point, I got my bachelor's in mechanical engineering with a minor in material science and engineering in 2019.
Nice.
What made me go to Tuskegee is funny, and I talk about this in my book. I actually did not necessarily want to leave Maryland. That's where I reside. I'm from Baltimore. Currently, I live down in Waldorf, Maryland now. But growing up in Baltimore, I just had that mentality that I just did not want to leave. And there was
Right.
another school that I ended up going for grad school, Morgan State University, that I really wanted to go to, and my dad kept saying, uh, what you call it, Elijah, the signs are pointing south, and pretty much you need to leave Baltimore.
That's in Georgia, right?
Tuskegee, no, Tuskegee's in Alabama.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah,
Morgan State.
so
Where's Morgan State?
Morgan State is in Baltimore.
Oh, okay, okay, okay. Gotcha. All
So
right.
so he's like, you really need to leave Baltimore, and just pretty much his point was you to just see that there's a bigger world beyond Baltimore.
Gotcha.
For me, I was born in Georgia. I was born in Atlanta. My mom's side of the family was from Georgia, and then we moved up to Baltimore when I was 3. So from the time that I was 3 until I was going on 17, I spent most of my life in Baltimore. I mean, of course, I did travel periodically. I went back home to Georgia to see my family. Of course, being in the ICGJC, we had to go to New York for the family day and the Israelite Summer Jam and Passover. And, we
Right.
went to Orlando in 2008, for the Archangel Awards. So, of course, we did some traveling, albeit mandatory.
Yeah,
We had to travel, but yes, we
right.
still traveled in the ICGJC. But yeah, his main focus was, hey, you need to just see what's beyond Baltimore. And
Yeah.
I applied to a bunch of schools, and all of a sudden, it's like I keep getting a lot of schools in Alabama, like Alabama A&M, Alabama State, then Tuskegee,
Mm-hmm.
and
Nice.
Tuskegee really came through with pretty much giving me some scholarship money that really helped me a lot.
Mm.
And the funny thing about it is it was almost, I think, predestined for me to go to Tuskegee, because in my father's house there is a dinner tray that has Tuskegee Institute. And for those who know the history of Tuskegee, it was originally called Tuskegee Institute before it changed to university.
Mm.
So it's kind of like there was, like, just, as people might want to say, just destined for me to just go to Tuskegee. But
Right.
what I liked about going to Tuskegee was I got a chance to, be close to my family down south, meet a bunch of new people. They had a great engineering program, and Tuskegee has been a huge part of my journey. In fact, just this past February, I went back to be a part of their career fair to recruit for my job with the Navy,
Mm.
and also I'll be going back in a couple weeks for homecoming too. So
Nice.
Tuskegee has been a huge part of my journey and who I am today. And what I tell people in my book is, and it's in the same chapters, chapter 5. Chapter 5 is don't let other people put you in a box. And I talk about the process of, um, traveling and how important that is, whether it's for school, for
Mm-hmm.
leisure, for business. You just need to get out and see the world for what it is, because if you spend too much time in a certain location, you think that that's just the world itself. I think even my dad was telling me, like, there were people in the Baltimore church of the ICJC who never left Baltimore. Like, they never went to Orlando. They didn't go to New York until it was time to go to the major conference or Passover or whatever. They just stayed in Baltimore.
Right.
And even when I came back from my first semester at Tuskegee, I remember I asked people in Baltimore, like, "Hey, anything changed right here?" They're like, "No, you ain't missing none." So it's like, and don't get me
Right.
wrong, Baltimore has its flaws, but I do love my city. That's where that's my home.
Mm.
But definitely you have to get out and see the bigger world. You can't stay in one location. If you stay in one location, like I said, you're not going to grow. You're only going to think that the world is like this big, when the reality, the world is a humongous place for you to learn and grow, and more importantly, meet many people too. So yeah, that's kind of the reason why I ended up going to Tuskegee, and I'm thankful for that, because if I had gone to Morgan for undergrad, I don't think I would have gotten the same experience like I did at Tuskegee. One, Morgan is very close to where I live, so I wouldn't be living on campus. It would probably just be a different experience for me. Morgan is still a great school, but I think going out of state and seeing the bigger picture, that was a much of an honor for me to experience, because it really had a great impact on me. And when I do recruitment sometimes for the Baltimore Tuskegee Alumni Club, I would tell some of the students at the high schools, I said, listen, if you can, hey, Baltimore's not going anywhere, but if you get a chance, please consider going, outside of Maryland, because there's a lot of opportunities and a lot of chances for you to grow as a person when you
Right.
go outside the country, not outside the country, well, that too, but
Yeah.
outside of the state you live in, as opposed to staying in the state you live in all the time.
Yeah. I know your father went to school in Georgia. That's what I was thinking about.
Yeah, he
Um,
went to Morehouse. Yeah.
Morehouse. That's right. Yeah. And Tuskegee has like a lot of history. Like it's like one. It's a historic black college, isn't it?
Yes. Yep.
So it's a HBCU, definitely a historic black college or university. Um, uh, Booker T. Washington, I believe, graduated from Tuskegee.
Well, he graduated from Hampton, and then
Oh,
he went. Yeah, he
okay.
graduated from Hampton, and then he went later on to found Tuskegee.
He found
That's why,
Tuskegee. Right,
right?
right.
That's why we sometimes refer to Hampton as our sister school, because
Oh, okay.
they 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 gave us Booker T. Washington. So I tell people when I meet people from Hampton, I always thank them for giving us Booker T. Washington, because without them, we may not have a Tuskegee University. So
Right.
I might be a little favor when I say maybe Hampton is the real HU, because it's always a debate between them and Howard who's the real HU. But if there are any Hamptons alum watching this, I think y'all might be the real HU, because y'all gave us Booker T. Washington. But is what it is.
Right, right. That's good though, man. That's because it has such great history and like, yeah, getting around and getting out and seeing different things, experiencing a whole, different way of life. It helps you see outside of the box. It helps you think outside of the box. And yeah, if you get stuck in an echo chamber, I apply the same thing to like just where I get news from. I like to go to all different, news outlets, from far left to far right to middle or to independent. Just get a good sense of what's going on out there, and that's the best way to do it. Just get out and see, what the world has to offer you. It's so much more than the little square mileage that you might live around. And there's nothing wrong with, also feeling comfortable and in one place. I have family like that they refuse to leave New York City where we grew up at. And I don't know, you could get comfortable and maybe you could, live a positive, successful life and still, do your thing. But if you don't have so much time in your life, you want to go out and experience different things, I think. So
Absolutely.
yeah, I'm just traveling is something that's definitely shows that like a traveled person has a lot of experience. Life is different. When you went to Africa and you met, you went to actually went to Liberia.
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
That,
yeah, tell me a little bit about that
I just want to
because
say this real quick,
yeah,
but I'm sorry. I want to say
yeah,
this. Yeah, my passport was stamped and everything.
yeah.
I, I,
Right, a little
I was not
inside joke there.
right.
Tazadaka.
For those who don't know, again, another little ICJC history lesson. Again, Tazadaki, who was the so-called comfort of the church we were a part of,
Right,
uh, came up with this rumor in 1999. He went to Mount Sinai, he went to Israel, and came to find out this man never even had a passport. So that's why I say
right.
that, yes, my passport was stamped. I had left the country. I can prove it. I will not uh, dodge any questions about my trip to Africa, because I have the proof for it. So again, to the IGJ people on this call, I'm sorry, but we have to tell you again, surgery is painful. The
Hmm.
man did not have a passport. I'm sorry. The man did
Right,
not go to Israel. I know that's painful, but the man did not go to Mount Sinai in 1999. I'm just saying.
right,
But to
right.
your point, but yeah, to your point, going to Africa was a truly an honor. And I tell people that when you go back to the continent, it's like no other trip you ever taken, at least in my opinion. Because I mean, you read my book. I had been on to some great trips. Orlando. I went to see one of my closest friends in Houston a couple months ago. But there's nothing like going, one, internationally, and then two, for me as a Black person in America, to make that trip back home and reconnected with the people of Africa. That
Mm.
was truly an honor. And just to know who I am. I'm not ashamed to say it. I consider myself an African. I ain't with that whole Hebrew Israelite. We ain't Africans. I'm sorry. I threw that away a long time ago.
Yeah,
It's fun.
that takes away from who you really are as a person. It's like,
Yes.
yeah,
It's funny, real quick. I saw a video today. I was watching Saw Netta. He was interviewing what's his name? Tazari Yak. He was talking about it's like
he
it's like
loves
no,
Yak,
we're
yeah.
he's like, no, we're really closer to the white man more than to the Africans. I'm just like, brother,
Yeah,
if you only took a DNA test, brother, I'm
right.
sorry, but you are
If
going
you
to be
look at
so
their doctrine, yeah, that's how that's why it doesn't make sense because if you know the story of Jacob and Esau, they were brothers. They
Yes. And
they
Saw Netta brought up
yeah.
that point too.
Yeah.
Sarnetta brought that up. He's like, wait a minute. Esau's father was a Hebrew, right? Was it Isaac, right? He's just like,
Right.
like, yeah. But so, like, wait a minute. How is he gonna be a white man from a Hebrew? That makes that makes no sense. But yeah.
Yeah.
But my point is going to Africa, knowing who I am as a person, and making those connections. I felt it impacted me not only emotionally, but physically, spiritually. The food was great, much better than we get in America.
Yeah.
Trust me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
the food, the food was delicious, and just to see the hospitality of the people of Liberia, and to know that the two, you know, Liberia and America have a lot of historical connection. The first settlers from Liberia were from America. A lot of the first presidents were from America.
Yeah.
So
Wasn't John Hanson one of them?
I'm not sure. I have to look that up though.
Okay.
But in fact, there is some of them who were from Baltimore too. So making that trip, was such a huge honor, and meeting the people over there, and knowing who I am, that truly made me proud. And it kind of I reverence it more because I can admit, because I was taught incorrectly, that we weren't like any of these people, and the reality is we actually have a lot more in common than we actually think we do. So oh yeah, I see Democratic Jumper asking, "What are you two talking about?" Democratic Jumper, I'm not sure. I guess you might be a brother. We're talking. Brother Miguel was talking about my trip to Liberia, but we're talking about my book. Your Jewels in Your Journey, some of our
Right.
experiences in the Israelite Church of God in Jesus Christ. So yeah, that's kind of some of the discussion that we've been talking about so far. If you just joined in, but um,
Yeah.
but yeah, brother, that pretty much was an awesome trip. I hope to get a chance to go again, and just continue to building that relationship between the people of Liberia and Africa and America. Because one of the things that is, and I have to do more research into it, but I've heard about it, is something called memorandum. It's like a memorandum 46. There we go. It's a document that pretty much was created in 1978 to keep Africans in America and Africans from the continent separate. So
Mm.
definitely, even trying to destroy that philosophy, and just build that on that connection is truly an honor. So even just last week, I'll end it right here. They actually had the Liberian conference in the DMV. I didn't. My father went to the conference. I actually went to see the president of Liberia at the town hall last Sunday, and that was just an honor. And I met somebody who I met from Liberia over there. So definitely, I'm still connected, with the people over there, and like I said, hope to continue to build that connection moving forward.
Did they give you an award for something?
No, no, no. They didn't get. Well, they didn't give me an award while I was over in Liberia. One of our I was part of a summit that went over there back in May.
Okay.
That my dad and I went, and the gentleman who was our coordinator is from Liberia, and
Okay.
he actually he still is. He was childhood friends with the president. So they've known each other since childhood, and so he was able to get us to actually meet the president of Liberia, President Boakai. For those who don't know who that is, there was a situation a couple months ago where Trump had some of the presidents from Africa at the White House, and he was the guy who told President Boakai that, "Oh, you speak such good English.
Yeah.
Where did you know that
Yeah.
was the same guy?"
Right. And English
So
English is the main language there. Uh,
yes, it's like, come on, man. It's like we talked
yeah.
earlier. People from America were leading Liberia at one point. Like,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
you don't know
Yeah.
that, because you
That's
know,
something I when I brought up John Hanson. John Hanson gets all mixed up in this conspiracy that he was the first president of the United States,
yes, yep,
and he's actually, because he's a black man. They were saying, oh, it's a black man was the first president of the United States. This was coming out when Obama became president, and during Obama's presidency, people were saying, no, there's already been a black president of the United States, and it's John Hanson. But John Hanson was actually president of Liberia, and this goes way back before, or like I forget what year. It's probably the early 1900s. But there's a photo of him, so it has to be like after 1850 or something like that. So there's an actual photo of him, and he was born, I believe, in America, but he became
hmm
president of Liberia. So, which is amazing. I didn't realize how deep the connections were. So when I saw that, I was like, and I recognized the guy. Said, I know this man, this president. I saw him recently, and it's exactly from that incident where Trump is saying, "You speak such good English." Yeah,
Right.
that was a that was definitely a moment there. But for you, definitely a moment to remember. Your father sent me the photos earlier today, and I was just like, "Oh wow, that's amazing." So that's good, man. It's good to see this because when you leave a cult, they like to make you think that your life is going to be over afterwards, and that you're not gonna have anything to live for anymore, and that it's basically downhill from here. And that's exactly the opposite of what's going on. There's situations where sometimes it could be destructive, and there's effects, after effects, psychological effects of being in a cult, and that's nothing to play with and to talk down on. But that's, also something that you can overcome, just being in a cult, and you can get help. There's people, that think that there's nobody really that cares. Maybe, like they make you think that because they isolate you from the cult. So some people come out and
Yes.
they don't have a good family structure. So it's good that you had that, right? Like your father was there and your mother was there. Some people don't have that, but
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah, it's definitely, and I tell people, when you leave a cult, like for me, the way I see it, and I'm not a psychologist whatsoever, but I always look at leaving a cult as like a two-step process. So it's like you have to physically leave, and you have to mentally leave. And I think the mental part is the tougher part because when
right,
you stayed in something for so long and you've taken on that identity, and I think for a lot of people, why they stay in cults is because two reasons. One, fear, obviously, because like you said, with the
mhm,
ICGJC, we were told, hey, if you leave, you're going to hell. They always used Ariad. He's like Ariad would say nothing the whole class, but the one thing he would say would be like, man, if you leave this truth now, yeah, you a demon.
yeah, right,
Like this man ain't saying nothing the whole time, but when it's time, I think Taz knew, like, hey, Ariana, tell
yeah,
him, like, yeah, you leave this truth, yeah, you a demon. Like, I'm just like, this.
wow,
So
that's
that's
the
he can
truth.
say that too, but
Yeah,
it's the fear that would keep you locked in. But I think, and my dad and I have had this conversation a lot of times too. The reason why a lot of people are still staying in that place is also because it's the shame. It's the
right,
shame that tells me, like, oh my gosh, I was actually wrong about this place. Like,
hmm,
if I leave, like, my family outside the church is gonna, are they gonna mock me? Are they gonna laugh at me and say, "See, we told you not to join that cult"? It's like
yeah,
I've invested. I've heard psychologists talk about this with people who are in toxic or abusive or narcissistic relationships. It's called the sunken cost fallacy, where you've
mm,
invested so much into something that
mm,
you just think that I can't leave. Like I'm just giving too much to this place. So for a
mm,
lot of people, so the reason why the mental part I think is just so tough for a lot of people who leave any cult
yeah,
is because you have to deal with the fear of the unknown. That if I leave, okay, what's going to happen to me now? Am I going to get destroyed? Am I going to get judged? Am I really going to go to hell like they tell I'm going to go to hell? Or and then of course it's like, okay, now you have to deal with this fact that I have to live with the fact that yes, I was wrong. I made a mistake. That I my intuition told me not to join this place. There were some red flags that I saw, but I said I'm gonna ignore it. And now I have to just live with that. And I think for a lot of people who leave cults, that's very painful. And for some people, they just don't want to deal with that. So for some people, it's like, you know what? I'd rather just stay and deal with this chaos versus to just say that I was wrong. But the thing with that is, you're still damaging yourself
right,
because you could leave, admit you're wrong, and then slowly start to rebuild your life. But because you're trying to avoid shame and avoid, the fact that you were wrong. You're just doing more damage to yourself because you should have left this place long ago because your spirit is telling you. Like, if you
yeah,
ask anybody, especially in the ICJC that has left, they will
right,
tell you, like, yep, something kept telling me years ago I need to leave this place. I kept seeing things. I
mhm,
just said, you know what, I'm gonna ignore that and I'm gonna pretend that didn't happen. But it just gets to a point where it's like, you know what, I can't take this no more. I have to leave. That is if I don't get put out. Now, if you get put out, then it's like, hey, you kind of just got to, you just have them do the work for you. Because now you can go live your life. But for some people, it's like, hey, I got kicked out and I want to get back in because I don't want to go to hell. So it's just like, it's like that hamster wheel of like, I can never get off the merry-go-round of this thing. It's like,
Yeah.
the longer I stay, it's like the longer I want to leave. But if I leave, it's like, then what happens to me? So I think that's why the mental part of leaving a cult is so difficult. It was difficult for me. I like, my dad would probably tell you, we did not, he left first. And
Mm,
he and I did not see eye to eye on that at first because I was just so shocked. Like, why would he leave? Like, because, I came into this as a child. I had no choice. So I'm thinking, like, why would he leave all of a sudden? Like, I remember I would tell my dad, like, "Hey, Dad, don't you miss your friends? Don't you miss your family down at church?"
yeah.
But that's because me being a teenager, a young child, like I'm naive. I didn't really start seeing some of the corruption probably until I joined the academy.
Mm,
That's when I started to see, okay, yeah, this ain't all what it cracked up to be. But
mm,
but for me, that wasn't an easy process. I had to. It took me probably about a year after he took me out to finally come to grips with this place is no good. Like, and I can't hold on to something that is is fallible. It's not solid. There's not a solid foundation in this place. There's too much corruption. There's people are being exploited. There's so much damage that's being done to people's lives in this place where it's like, what? Yeah, hey, I hate to, as much as I hate to admit at the time, he was correct. He was right to take me out and remove me from that situation because it really was not a good thing. Like, but like I said, it took me a minute to adjust because I even talked about this in my book. My dad and I were coming from a program I was doing in Philadelphia called the Urban Racing School. I'm having fun on Saturday and doing
mm,
stuff that I normally wouldn't do in the ICJC, but because I
mm,
felt so guilty because it was
yeah.
the Sabbath. It's just like I'm gonna start reading the Bible. And my dad looked over and like, Elijah, what you reading? He's like, I'm reading Genesis, Dad. He's like, boy, you don't know creation by now? Like, but he knew but he knew it was the guilt. He was like, oh,
Right.
he's feeling guilty because it's the Sabbath and he ain't supposed to be doing his own pleasure on the Sabbath. So he feel like, okay, to make up for it, I got to read the Bible to make sure I'm still in God's good graces. So, you know,
Right.
it, it, to wrap this up because I don't want to take too much time on it, but
Yeah.
to people who are in a cult, it's a two-step process. And I would tell people also, don't rush your healing. If it takes you, hey, for some people, it might take a year or two and they're over it. Some people
Yeah.
may take 5 years, 10 years, but you can't rush your healing. You have to take it day by day, step by step, and just hope things get better one step at a time. Huh, that's funny. I
Yeah.
see Warner Brothers comment. He said there's contradictions in Genesis chapter 1 and chapter 2 for your information. Oh,
Yeah, yeah, there's definitely some contradictions in the creation, and then when Eve was created, there's two different creation stories. They say some people can kind of blend that in. I was talking about that the other day, how you have four different accounts in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John in the gospel, and if we were to listen to four different accounts of a story, the way like a detective would do it is if it doesn't match, they don't just mash it up together and come up with their own thing. They're going to start asking questions. Well, how come, for example, the last words of Jesus Christ? Some people might say it is done. Then some people might say, Father, what have thou forsaken me? And then there's another one. So it's like it should just be one. If you start getting two or three different answers, then that means that there's a lie somewhere.
yes,
So it could be one lie, it could all be lies. So that's the complicated thing about the Bible. But just like anything in life, I think that you can get some great lessons from the Bible. But I don't look at it the way that they used to make us look at it in the cult. It's like you become a slave to the Bible, and you can't even have any common sense if it's not found in the Bible, which that's not how life works. It's like you can take good things out of the Bible and you
yeah,
use that, apply that to your life, and okay, but yeah, like you have a scripture in your book that says train up a child in the way he should go. It's like all of that is good. It's talking about a father dealing with a child and raising up a child right. It's great scripture, and it all kind of it's anybody can relate to that, or any father can relate to that. So
Yeah.
so yeah, like that's part of life. The ICGJC, just to kind of finish talking about that, was a place that we were both in. We came out of it, we spoke against it, and we kind of build our lives using that, and not forgetting it, but not really making it all about that, because um, that place pretty much you can get good things also from the cult. There were good things that came out of it. There were jewels that came out of it, but it was a time like when I felt uncomfortable. Felt like I was lying to myself, and you just can't be. I can't. You can't live. I couldn't live with myself in a contradiction. Where I know what this says, but yet I have to go by what the cult is saying.
Yes.
Even like when they try to use the Bible, you can use the Bible and show how they're being hypocrites. And that's when I started realizing like this is becoming something else. And I got to figure this out. And the best way to do it was outside of the cult for me. Some people are figuring it out while they're still in there. It was better for me while I was out. I got put out, but I got to put myself out because I didn't. I was watching, as a captain of 13,000 in a high rank, I was watching them just be corrupt as hell, corrupt as ever, and that wasn't what we were supposed to be looking like. There was no care for even children, some of the most vulnerable people, the sick. You know, they were telling us we couldn't go to funerals, that we shouldn't go. They started suggesting it after they realized that we can't tell these people not to go to their funerals, their own brother, their own father's funerals. So I don't know, but this cult, I guess, like I'll talk about them here and there, but that they're pretty much lost and forgotten. And this is a great, like, just a way to show how that place is. You can see them actually decreasing and diminishing as people that are leaving that place are actually growing in their life and moving on to better things, way better things. But I'm gonna close it out because I don't want to take up too much of your time. We're on over an hour now. I think I want to just give you the last words at this point, and going by what we spoke and everything. What's the best advice you would give to a young man, that was that's trying to find some type of balance in life? Yeah. What would you give? What's the best advice you would give to a young man that's trying to find some type of answers or balance in life?
Definitely, like I said earlier, you definitely want to find a role model, someone that you can look up to for, guidance and wisdom, whether it be your parent, like I said, teacher, coach, whatever, somebody who can give you guidance along the way. Also, figure out, what are your interests, like what are you interested and passionate about? And, think about how you want to make those dreams a reality. Uh, oh, real quick, my dad joined the chat. He said, "Read something from your book before you close." So
Yeah,
uh,
definitely.
I'm gonna definitely do that. So after answer your question, brother, I'm gonna say this.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, definitely uh, have a good role model. Learn your think about what you're interested in, what your passions are, and just pay attention to the right people in your circle who can help you get to where you're trying to go. And also, like I said earlier, don't let anybody put you in a box. Don't let anyone think that you can't do a certain thing or whatever. So yeah, that's probably some of the advice that I would tell somebody who's trying to find themselves, as they begin their journey of life.
Yeah, definitely. And we're gonna read something. I don't know what would be the best thing to read. I was looking at chapter 9, or chapter 8. Positivity is good for the soul. Um, but what was I also gonna say? Where can we find this book? What's your website? ElijahLewis.org. Was it?
Yes. So if you want to purchase your copy of Your Jewels in Your Journey, you can go to my website, ElijahLewis.org. I'm sure Brother Miguel will put that in the description. So
Yeah.
yeah, ElijahLewis.org is where you can go to purchase your copy of Your Jewels in Your Journey.
Right. So
And
yeah.
Well, I see my dad is telling me a couple chapters I want to read, but I think the first one I'm going to read, and I got as much time as you got, Brother Miguel, so don't think you got to
Okay.
rush me at all.
Okay.
I think the first chapter I want to read, and this is on my mind when you said, "Hey, we want you." When you told me, brother, I want you to read from your book.
Yeah. Right.
Something told me like I gotta start with chapter 5. I gotta give them just a little taste of what was like with life in the ICGJC for me. That's something I want to start off with, but I'm gonna read some other chapters. So I'm
Yeah.
gonna give people bits and pieces. I don't want to give the whole thing. So I'm gonna kind of give you a trailer of some stuff, and hopefully you go out and quote purchase the movie unquote. But so I'm gonna start off with chapter 5. This is on page 65. So I call this my 10-year box. So this is a little bit of my journey into how I grew up in the ICGJC and what that life was like. Life was like for both, not just me, but my parents as well. So this is my 10-year box. When it comes to my experience of being put in a box by others or myself, I can definitely think of a few examples. I can think of putting myself in a box by telling my dad I'd work at Walmart if I didn't go to college. I can think of others trying to put me in a box because at 6'6" tall, people automatically assume I played basketball when in reality I was a swimmer. Although I do enjoy playing basketball whenever I can, so I put my height to good use. For the record, just because someone is tall doesn't mean they have to play basketball. However, that doesn't compare to the box I spent 10 years of my life in from 2003 to 2013. Before I go into the details of my 10-year box, let me say something I'm sure we all know. In life, people have different beliefs as far as religion is concerned. Now, in some cases, you have people with religious beliefs that are different and extreme. When you think about religions like that, what is your first assumption? Probably that this person is in a cult, right? Well, unfortunately, that's what I was in for 10 years. A cult is a box, an extreme box, one where there is basically no freedom. A cult cannot exist with freedom for its members because then it's not a cult. According to the Open Education Society Dictionary, a cult is defined as a relatively small group that excessively controls its members who share acts and practices which require unwavering devotion and are considered deviant outside the norms of society and typically led by a charismatic and often self-appointed leader, i.e. Tazadaki. The group that I was a part of, the group that I was a member of certainly fit these characteristics. Now, the people who have never been part of a cult, the misconception that they question how someone could be crazy enough to join something so ridiculous. But the thing is, nobody intends to join a cult. Usually people are seeking for knowledge or enlightenment, like my parents were, or there could be a sense of vulnerability, such as experiencing the loss of something such as a loved one or job. So in my case, my parents and I were Hebrew Israelites and the members of the Israelite Church of God in Jesus Christ, ICGJC. The church had a few different divisions, and being that we were in Baltimore, we were a part of the Baltimore church. What led us to being in the church was that my father had stopped going to church for a few years. My mom would still go to church, and occasionally I would go to church with her. In 2002, the ICGJC aired their TV show, The Hidden Truth, and introduced my parents to the church and their teachings. I think for my father, it fascinated him because he had so many questions about the Bible that were not getting answered. That were getting answered, excuse me. I think it was the same for my mother. To be honest, I didn't pay much attention to it because as a kid, I thought religion was one of those things you just did because of your parents. I was more into cartoons and playing with my toys than watching that. At first, they did teach some great things, such as Jesus and many of the characters in the Bible were black. There's a dietary law in the Bible, and even that so-called blacks and Hispanics and Native Americans were the chosen people of God. After watching The Hidden Truth for a year, my parents decided to go to the church and attend their Sabbath service. By the way, that's another teaching of the Hebrew Israelites that the Sabbath begins on Friday at sundown to Saturday at sundown instead of being on Sunday as most Christians believe.
Right.
We went to the church for the first time on June 21st, 2003. I was 6 years old at the time. In fact, my reaction when the service ended was that it took too long. At the time, their services began at 8 and ended at noon. As a kid, let's just say that I was not interested in sitting in church for 4 hours. Then again, ask any child if they're interested in that, and I'll bet you money the answer is no, although I'm sure there are probably some exceptions. As for my parents, their reaction was split. My father wasn't planning to continue going to the church. He was content with watching their TV show moving forward. As for my mom, as far as my mom was concerned, she actually wanted to go back. And my father did not want her to go alone. Little did we know that our lives would change for the next 10 years. So I think I'm gonna do maybe two more paragraphs and I'm gonna stop with this one. So
Okay.
as time went on, we did become members of the ISGJC. My father eventually joined their ranking structure and continued to follow their teachings. We eventually took on so-called Hebrew names as well. Don't get me started on that foolishness because that's just a way of taking our natural identity. However, as time went on, my father noticed that there were some flaws with the church, and he had thoughts of leaving. But it seemed as my father wanted to leave the church, the more ingrained my mom and I were becoming in it. For me, when I was in the church, the more genuine my belief became. I had asked questions because I wanted to know as much as I could about the Bible. One of the questions I was asked was when I planned on joining the Hebrew Academy, which is basically their program to teach the brothers all their teachings and move up in the ranking structure. In 2011, I wanted to join, but my father had some concern about my performance at school. My plan was to get through my freshman year at Poly, which is my high school, Baltimore Polytechnic Institute, and then join that summer since that was a transitional year for me. Okay. So this is my last paragraph. I'll end with this. I did join that summer, and when I reflect on that decision, it wasn't the best choice. I don't think I realized how different the church operates when you're in their ranking structure versus when you're just a member. The problem for me was I put more emphasis on the ICGJC than I was with school. As a result, I wasn't putting the right amount of time into studying, and my grades declined. That's what led to me being on academic probation and essentially having my father almost cuss me out for getting that letter from Polly my sophomore year. It was tough having to go through that because every day I went to school, it seemed like a struggle. In fact, this was the first time I experienced depression. I really lost my motivation to do well in school. But honestly, I thought the church was going to be a way for me to escape that, when in reality, it was a hindrance. I even told my father that the church was less stressful than school. It's sort of like how a person turns to drugs or alcohol to escape their problems. It may feel good for a moment, but it didn't but it doesn't solve the problem. All it does is put a bandage on the problem, but the problem doesn't go away. To say that I was naive was an understatement. So yeah, if you continue to read chapter 5 of my book, I go into more details about
Yeah.
all the challenges that we went through with the ICJC, the financial
Yeah.
challenges,
Sure. Yeah.
how that impacted, the relationship between me and my dad when he left the church, how my dad took me out the academy when uh, I went up to New York for major conference the day of the Super Bowl, and I'm a diehard Ravens fan, but unfortunately, because of ISGJC, I never got a chance to watch that Super Bowl. And because we got out so late, I'm not going to tell you what time. You have to read the book to tell you to figure out what time I got out. But it was a ridiculous time we got out the church,
Right.
and we didn't get back till the sun got up the next day. And I remember my dad he told me, he's like, you going to school? He's like, and I asked my dad, like, I got to go to school, Dad, and he was so upset because so many young people uh, in the church don't go to school. And then again, a lot of the brothers don't even go to work because I unfortunately don't even have jobs. So but if you can, when you continue to read that chapter, it talks about just how much of a hindrance and an impact the church had on my life. As a more so as a teenager than a child. I tell people as a child, it didn't affect me too much. I still went to school. I had my friends at school. I had friends in the church at the time. But as a teenager, it really was an impact because of joining the Hebrew Academy and not doing well in school and not going to the events my schoolmates were going to, like the Poly City football game or sophomore bowl and things like that. So yeah, that chapter was really a huge part of my journey. So I definitely say if there's anything you want to read within this book, I mean, you should want to read everything, but chapter 5 with the whole experience of me being in a cult, that is one for sure. So I gave you all like a little sneak preview, but like I said, definitely if you want the full story, definitely get your copy. So I
Yeah.
see Warner Brother asked me a question. I don't know if that's direct to me or Brother Miguel. He says atheist now. But for me personally, no. I'm not a. I don't consider myself an atheist. I still have. This is just my experience. Just speaking for me. I can't speak for, uh, anyone else in the group or for Brother Miguel. I still have acknowledgement to the Most High. I still thank God, if you want to put it like that, for my life and things like that. So just because I have left the cult, I don't consider myself an atheist. But now, do I subscribe to religion? I talk about this in my book. No, I consider myself more into spirituality, because spirituality tells you how to think. Religion tells you what to think. I can't tell anybody how they should have a relationship with the Most High. However you choose to do that, that's your life. That's essentially spirituality, because that's your relationship. If I tell you you must do this, this, that, and the third to have a relationship with God, that's religion. So that's kind of how my thought process is now. So I'm not an atheist, but I'm not a religious person either. And my dad says, talk about KLC in his video, if I were still a Hebrew Israelite. Okay, so this
I'm
is
actually reading that where you said that your dad was trying to show you the flaws of the church, and you kept getting cognitive dissonance.
yep.
And then the YouTube video is named "What If I Were Still an Israelite?" Yeah.
Yeah, so shout out to brother KOC, Andre Christos Healers. He and the guy, the marksman, they did a. When I first left the ICGJC, I really was watching their videos, the Society of the Ram, and by the way, for those of you who may not remember or don't know, KOC was the brother when Taz did the Enemy of the State radio show. He asked Todd, he's like, Jermaine, do you have a picture of you going to Israel? Like a picture or nothing. And Jermaine, being so stupid, was like, hey, see this guy right here. This brother want to know if I went to Israel. Is he trying to say that I didn't go to Israel? It's
Right.
like, yes, dummy. Like, just show us
Right.
the picture. Can you show us a passport? Anything that you went to Israel? You, the so-called comforter? Like, come on, man.
Yeah.
Like,
He's trying to
but
reverse the burden of proof and trying to make it seem like we got to prove that he didn't go, which is, how can you prove that something didn't happen? If you're the one,
right,
first of all, people wouldn't be saying that you didn't go if you weren't saying that you did go. So you should be proving that you went. That's,
right.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
KLC,
but
shout out to KLC and Marksman.
yeah, shout out to them. And like so yeah, and I talk about this in my book. So this is funny. I went to, it was a Saturday. I went to the Urban Youth Racing School, which is a school that focuses on, engine system. They talk about NASCAR, motorsports. And while I'm in the class on my lunch break, my dad sends me a video on my phone. I'm
Mm.
looking at the phone and it's KOC talking about what if I was still a Hebrew Israelite, and my cognitive dissonance flipped. I was like, Dad, why'd you send me this video? But looking
Yeah.
back at that video, KOC outlines the entire rundown of the ICJC every single year, from the beginning of the year to the end of the year, where from the picnics to high holiday season. And it's funny, he said people in the church would say, Akim, this is not a routine. It's like, but it is a routine. It's like you have the Sabbath, you got Passover, you got all the high holy days, you got to go to class throughout the week, you got unit work. It's the same thing week after week, month after month. It never changes. And you're really watching your life just pass you by. I mean, it pretty much, when you think about it, being in this place is almost like time is standing still, which is ironic, because Taj did a video talking about the day time stood still. Just like, it's like, okay. But the point is, when you're really in this place, it is like time standing still, because
Mm.
I heard about this earlier. People in a situation like that, when it comes to trauma, a lot of times they're not thriving, they're just surviving. You're just trying to make it from one week to the next. But there's no change in routine. You're spending all this time with the church. You're not spending time with your family, your friends, your children, your wife. It's like, because all your energy is being ingrained to this one organization, and that's what cults do. And that's how you might need to think about, if the religious group that you're in is a cult. Think about it. Is all my time being forced upon me to give to the church? And let's not even talk about the money. That's a whole different conversation in and of itself. But
Right.
yeah, KOC and his videos with the Marksman with the Side of the Ram were huge game changers. That was the
Mhm.
beginning stages that my parents and I watched really come out of that place. And as time went on, we had people like the Injustice League came along, and then of course, Brother Miguel, you came along with your videos. So,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, the one thing I'll say, and I'll end my point with this is the one advantage I think a lot of people have now when it comes to the ISGJC and all these other Hebrew Israelite cults is that we have the internet now. I mean, we had the internet in 2003 and when you came in 2004, but it wasn't like what it is now. Like back then, you kind of almost still had to rely on word of mouth for someone to tell you, like, hey, you shouldn't join this place. Now,
Right.
between all the videos, all the testimonies, the fact that Tazadakia's indictment is court record, that you can find that and just see like all the stuff that this man was indicted for, it will be almost shocking to see a person join the ICJC now, especially that all that has happened, all that's come out, and for people who are still there, it's like, hey, you got all this resources at your disposal which you can actually use to leave,
Mm.
and you have to ask yourself, why do these groups want you to stay away from these videos so badly? If they're really the righteous men of God, then why are they trying to hide all this information from you? Why are they trying to tell you, don't tell anybody, like Taz, I think said at the Passover like one year, like, don't tell nobody about your research, don't be doing your own research. Just like,
Yeah.
come on. It's like, come on, man. So, but
Hmm.
yeah. So, but that's the whole thing with KOC and that what if I were still a Hebrew Israelite video. I wasn't ready to receive it at the time, but when when I finally was able to process what I had been through and watch that video, I get it 100%. And he did a great job laying out the groundwork of that place, and I have to thank him and brothers like you who are putting this information out here because you all are saving lives. I mean, a lot of people, as you said, are still leaving that place and are able
Mhm.
to finally experience freedom. So when
Yeah,
I
I mean, it's a slap in their face because they say that we're gonna get judged and we're gonna live horrible lives, and it's like a scary movie. It's like how they make it seem, which is part of the fear. Like there's some good fear, there's some healthy fear, but there's an irrational fear. There's something that's psychotic called irrational fear. That's actually like what schizophrenic is.
Mhm.
Um, or well, actually, you hear voices when you're schizophrenic, but you also have like irrational feelings about things that's not real. And that's exactly what it was to be in a cult. It's like we were psychotic or something. It's like it's so irrational is a better way to put it. There's no logic. None of that made sense to me when I first started hearing the Rebel Alliance media, on YouTube in the early days, like 2008, 2007, I think they even go back to.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
this at the same time, while YouTube helped grow this community of Hebrew Israelites that say that the original sons of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob are black and Native American and Hispanics. Like this is a cult that's trying to take your time and get all of your resources, all your money, and they
mhm,
want to. It's like a recruitment, like how Epstein was recruiting, and then the recruit starts recruiting other people.
yep,
Like Lane was,
absolutely.
it's like that's how it becomes, and it just grew to a community of its own with small groups within the big community. Some groups are bigger, some groups are smaller, but essentially they all have the same, I think, objective and the same end means is to control the world with power and through God, and they want their land back, which they claim is Israel. And
Yeah,
disconnected from reality, they want to live out. They actually disconnected from from time. They have a completely wrong identity. Plus, they it's like they live in a time frame that we don't live. When you read the Bible, it talks about trading your oxen and things like, and it's like all types of laws that doesn't even apply to people nowadays.
yes,
So it's like it's all outdated. The way that they try to capture your mind, it's total sub, like you're a servant and you don't
yes,
have no way to think for yourself. And there's a quote that I love in your book. It's a Mark Twain quote that is it's harder, it's easier to fool somebody than to convince them that they've been fooled. That's
yes,
another great quote. So the fact that you have people that are out like me and you, it's like we're the ones that actually were trying to question our beliefs. You know, you said it earlier. You don't grow if you don't question yourself, and you have to at least like consider that you might be wrong. It's like this is a narcissistic behavior too. We become kind of like our leader because we don't consider at all that we might be wrong about something, and that hinders our growth. Definitely.
Absolutely.
I love talking about all this stuff, man. And shout out to Russell Lewis. If anybody got any questions in the comment section, for you can ask, in the comment section. Mayan Stevenson, that's a grown man right here. This is Elijah Lewis. He said, "Who's that boy?" I know he looks very young, but yeah, man, we're talking about his book, and a particular chapter that we're diving into right now is the basically the 10-year box. I guess that's a sub title, or the sub chapter, if you want to call it, within "Don't Let Others Put You in a Box." If you go to page 78, page 65 is my 10-year box, is where it starts. And I was just looking at page 78. That's where it talks about the video. Because that video, to go back to KOC, it's like he's speaking about it from the outside, and we're looking at it from the inside, and he's talking about how he spent all this time outside, and it kind of
Yeah.
brings you back to reality, because in that place you're not living in reality. And we were looking at a person that left, and we were thinking he was going to be completely destroyed and judged, and he was asking some of the greatest questions that I think we need to be asking ourselves, um
Yes.
you know
Absolutely.
question yourself. How do I know this is true? you know it's the best
Right.
question. Like, how can I prove this to be true? What can be verified? Okay, the Bible's good, it has some true things. Overall, there, you can't say that. If somebody asks you, I always get asked this question: do you believe in the Bible? It's like, think about how much of like a loaded question that is, because it's like you already know what they're asking about. There's a lot of things in the Bible, so it's like,
Good
you know,
point.
what do you mean believe? Like, okay, I believe that there were Assyrians, there were Egyptians, there were Israelites. Now, what when you start talking about some of the supernatural things, I'll say I don't believe in some of those things. Like, they can't be proven. Um,
Right. That's true.
know,
Because
how
you got
can
to remember, it's
yeah,
allegory. It's that's
yeah,
something people don't want to talk about.
right. And then how can you prove that somebody died for the bad things that you do, which, a sin is, that word carries a lot of weight. It's like there's a lot of just the way, like, we understand things. It's like there's a lot of baggage that these words already have. Like the word sin, it's like you can just say that it's something bad that you did, but when you add that word sin to it, it's like it has all this connotation to it, like as if you disrespected something above you. And I don't know, I like talking about all those things because now I look at life and it's like there were bad things that I did, but now I'm trying to make things right. And even the scripture says, like, if you offend in one, you offend in all. But like, there's different stages in life where it's like, okay, well, I did that back then, but now I understand the Bible. Now when I read the Bible, I can see the good, and I can see, the things that are not important or unnecessary and irrelevant. And that's how I look at it now. So when somebody asks me, do I believe in the Bible? It's like I believe in some things in the Bible, and then there's some things that I'm not convinced of it. It's like it's not up to me to convince myself. I think that, I mean, I can look into it and see what's true, and there's a lot of things that essentially can't be proven. To create a group surrounded around that is that's exactly what a religion is. And more specifically, to create a cult that worships and just doesn't bow the knee to anything else. To me, it's an extreme way of believing in something that is also at the same time not beneficial, not really helpful. And I, like you were saying, I don't I didn't I mean, I did want to get people out. And when I started talking about them, like, I want these people to leave. And I'm like, now I look at it like it's not up to me. people want to make the choice. If they want to stay in there, then hey, that's up to them at this point. They have all
Yes,
the information at their fingertips. Like that's why these channels exist. Is because you got to hear the other side of things, and if you don't open yourself up to that, you want to close yourself out, then you made your own bed, and I think that's just a horrible way to live life. And but
absolutely.
that's my opinion, of course. So, but yeah, that's I don't know my journey. I have a journey too, in the cult, and ours, cross path. And I love talking about this stuff, man. I'm glad to have you on. I definitely want to keep talking if you got the time. I don't know if you got anything else you want to say on that, what I just said.
Oh yeah, I'm good, brother. Hey, I'm good. If you want to keep talking, hey, I'm enjoying the conversation. By the way, I love what I'm seeing in the chat. I like what Maya Stevens said. We're talking about no autonomy. Yeah, that's very true. What we just discussed. Hey, there was no autonomy of your life whatsoever. So, hey, I'm good to go. If you want to keep talking, hey, I'm good for. This is your show, brother. I'm just a guest.
Yeah.
So, hey, I'm good as far as as you're concerned.
Right. Okay. Yeah. No problem, man. But yeah, just a lot of good conversations. I see. If we're denying that, so Warner Brothers, are you denying actual dark evil stuff exists? No, those things are real, but another word is evil. I think just like sin, those words carry a lot of weight. It's like when something is evil, I use that word, but sometimes people might think it's a religious word, and it probably is. It probably has its history in religion, and in like a lot of the language that we use in English has like these ancient meanings and like connotations that it's a lot of weight to it. There's a lot with it. So when I say something is evil, that doesn't necessarily mean that there's some, force. I don't know how to explain it. It's like it has to be explained, and those things, I think, still need to be. I mean, the more we speak about it, the more I guess we can kind of explain it. But I think what people talk about when they say evil is just something that is just bad, like has bad intention, and even to down to its core, which it's like it's evil and it's like bad intention is what I guess I would define evil. But I believe those things exist. I just don't believe in like it's being like a supernatural thing, I guess.
Yeah,
But
I agree. I'm not with the supernatural of it all, but do I think evil? Of course, evil exists. I mean, because it's the opposite of good. So I mean, I'm like you. I don't. I try to get. I think a lot of us try to get caught up in the mysticism of it all and the, like you said, the supernatural. When reality is, you have evil, obviously. Um, Oh, I like what Maya Stevenson said. Mayan says evil is a subjunctive term we use to describe things we don't like. Yeah, very true. And a lot of times what we consider is evil, really, and I know it's kind of going against how like the Bible says, woe unto them that call evil good and good evil, which is true. But then again, we have a lot of misunderstanding of stuff that what we think is evil really is not evil whatsoever. So, but to your point, do I think evil exists? Absolutely. But yeah, the whole supernatural and all that other kind of stuff, it's like, nah, I don't really I try to get caught up in that. I try to focus on where I'm at right now, in this life.
yeah,
If the supernatural stuff is something that you want to believe in, hey, that's your right. But I try to focus on the stuff that I'm actually seeing in real life and not try to get caught up in the whole mysticism of it all. If that
right.
makes sense.
And he said, Travis Standard, try some DMT and then we talk. But that alters your mind, Um, I don't know. I like the supernatural. There are stories that you hear all the time, and then people start to believe in things that they can't understand, and that's all I think it really is. It's like we don't have an explanation for some of these things that happen, and it's like I think we label them as supernatural or something like that. I've seen all types of stuff on video, and it's amazing how when you read the Bible, you would think this stuff was happening left and right, but now that we have cameras, it's not happening the way it's described that at least in the Bible, people resurrecting from the dead, you know,
Yeah.
women that never had sex giving birth, things like that. It's like those are not regular claims. Like if somebody told me I own a dog as a pet, I would be like, okay, I believe you. I have no reason to not believe that. But if you tell me that you have a pet dragon, now that's a pretty big claim that It's not just very simple. And that's the thing with the Bible. That's why I always mention it, or any of these books that make claims like the Bible does. Yeah, it's like, we don't have any evidence of these things. I don't have to prove it to be wrong. I just hasn't proven to be true. Anybody can make a claim and say, "Hey, you haven't proven it to be wrong. That means it's true." And that's not how it works. So I try to look at the Bible and just anything in life, just like how I should have did. If I would have had this knowledge, and I would have just put this basic knowledge to the test by just looking at Tazadakia and not just the Bible. It's just basic logic tells you this guy is not who he says he is, and he's lying most likely. And yeah, there's things that can't be proven. There's people that make big claims, and then it's like I don't have to disprove it, even though I think I did a pretty good job of disproving that this guy is anything big. But I didn't have to do that. Like that's why I love watching, like, going back to my old videos, or watching like the Injustice League, and watching KOC and Rebel Alliance Media, because like nobody had to do that for anybody. We were already out. We were good for the most part. Some people still have family in there, but it's like we were fighting for something that what we believed to be right, and we were right. Like we did, it was a good cause, it's a good reason to fight. You have to do things with put your all into it if you're really passionate about it. And I was really passionate. Like I was putting out videos every 6 days. I wasn't playing, man, because I believed in this stuff and I believed in myself. And making the videos and going through learning and making sure the videos come out right, the information was right. Like I learned and grew myself, and it was just more confidence for me, more positivity. It was going back to face my demons and just making it right and facing my worst, like, enemies, if you want to say that, because it was a war. Like these guys were my enemies. I don't look at them like that anymore, really, but it's still problematic. I mean, sometimes I still go back and cover some of these things, but I don't know what else to say that hasn't already been said, about the ICGJC. I think it's been covered pretty good over the years, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, like I said earlier, I just appreciate what all the work that you and just Rebel Alliance Media and the Injustice League did, because you all, not only saved so many people to get out that place, but I mean, you even opened up our eyes to members like me who might not even know a lot of the stuff was even going on behind the scenes. Like, I mean, we knew some stuff, and then you hear some stuff. Like, for example, when in the Injustice League went up and got Zahab's van and found all that stuff that was in there. I'm just like, man, Taz had a bunch of envelopes of money and everything in there, and I'm like, and this was this brother's van too. It's just like, it's
Yeah.
like it's sad, but yeah, like you said, we've talked about the ICJC so much. Honestly, bro, unless I get a notification from you on YouTube, I honestly sometimes forget about the ICJC. I really
Yeah.
do. It's just like
Yeah.
when I get a notification from you, it's like, oh yeah, I forgot about them. What's going on with them? Like it's just like, oh yeah, because like
Yeah.
listen, these. I mean, I don't want to make it seem like we're talking so bad about these people, because my heart does go out to people who are still in the ICJC. But to see what that place was when we got there, and I'm talking about my parents and even Brother Miguel, we got there in the early 2000s. Where they were then to where they are now in 2025
Yeah.
is it's like night and day. Like they
Hmm.
when I was growing up, they were in the streets. They seemed to be increasing their numbers for a while until about, I don't know, maybe what, oh eight, like, because Jermaine said like 2012 all the tribes are going to come back, and they were going to increase, and you realize in 2012 the numbers are actually getting smaller. It's just like, and as time went on, the numbers got smaller and smaller and smaller. So yeah, it's like I really don't even think much about the ICJC anymore until I get a notification from you, or if it was the Injustice League, and it's just like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, yeah, what's been going on with them? So it's just like I feel like most of us, unless we have family in there, which my heart goes out to people who still do.
Hmm.
I think like most people, when I see former members on social media, living their lives, they're spending time with their kids, their wives, their husband, whoever it is.
Yeah.
I look at these people that like they're not even concerned about the ICJC anymore. Like they're living their life. So it just shows you how much of an afterthought this place has become, where even former members aren't even focusing their time as much to the ICJC anymore. They're just trying to go and live their life, unless they have people still in there that they desperately want to get out, which I understand. But other than that, they're just living their lives and moving
Right.
forward, while people in the ICJC are just stuck, just
Yeah.
surviving, so yeah, but we can, if you want to talk about something else, we can, because we talked about the ICJC so much, it's just like, man.
Yeah. 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 Definitely. I mean, the positivity. I like that chapter, man. I was like really going through that and really thinking about that because the scripture even tells you, "As a man thinketh," and all of that. But you got to
Yeah,
have something, some foundation to be positive about. So I like that one right there. How positivity is good for the soul. And then at chapter 7, always giving back and helping others. You know,
yeah.
if you could, yeah. I mean, I guess chapter 7, when you talk about always giving back, why is that important to help and give back? Why do you consider that so important that you had to make a chapter about it?
Well, for me, when I think about my journey, I know that I didn't get to where I was today without help, and I put that in my book. I even use this example because I'm a sports fan, so I love watching basketball, football, and when it comes to basketball, people always say that Michael Jordan is the GOAT. But people got to realize, Michael Jordan, in all of his greatness, had help. Like I talked about, he had Scottie Pippen, he had Phil Jackson. Like he had to use his teammates at times to win all those championships and have the success that he did. So it just goes to show you that no matter how great or small you are, you're going to need some help along the way. And for me in my journey, I know I didn't get to where I was today without the help of my family, friends, my teachers, the various programs that I was in. So for me personally, that's the one reason why I put that in my book, because I want to tell readers that you can do some great things in life, but deep down, if it had not been for certain people in your circle, and that's why I tell people that one of the jewels is not only life lessons, but it's the people that you meet on your journey as well, because those people can help you along the way. So the reason why I put always give back and help others is because, one, you can't do it all by yourself, and two, you need to also help the people who are coming behind you as well, because they're looking for guidance and inspiration as well. They want to get to where you were. So if you don't help those people, then the ultimately they could find other people themselves. But definitely you can't. And I talk about in my book, you can't have the I got mine, you get yours mentality, where it's just like, okay, I made it, so you need to work harder and do your own stuff. It's like, no, if I can help you, then my obligation should be able to help you if you want it. Now, if you don't want the help, then hey, you're an adult, you make your own decisions, but you can't say that no one ever offered to help you. That's what you don't want people to say. So, that's kind of why I put that in there, because, like I said, you can't do it all on your own. And, two, you're going to need some help along the way. And three, other people are going to be looking for help after you achieve your goals and dreams. So, that's kind of why I wanted to put that in there, because it's very important that we remember that no matter how far we get ahead in life, we always had some people who helped us along the way.
That's great. Yeah, man. And you did a great job of putting it into words. I guess we're gonna end it there. I guess it's a good place to end it because we got a good amount of information. You're always welcome back. But this book itself, man, I take a quote that you actually quoted here in the book on page 97, under the flaws of a selfish, I got mine, you get yours society, right? So you say, one of my favorite quotes by Booker T. Washington, if you want to lift yourself up, lift someone else up.
There you
And
go.
I thank you, brother, for doing that. By reading this book, I actually felt uplifted, and I want to thank you for it. And I think, just so everybody knows, this is available on Elijah's website, elijahlewis.org, www.elijahlewis.org, and you can order it. It's something to keep in your stash, in your collection, to read and go through and apply to life. And I appreciate you coming through and sharing all your experiences and opening up and just being genuine. You've definitely helped lift up this channel. you know your father too, I got to give a shout out to him. We mentioned other people that have lifted us up, but I really think that what you've done with this book and what you continue to do is it definitely exemplifies everything you spoke about it, man. I want to thank you for coming through, brother, and I'll let you get the last words.
Yeah. Oh, and then my dad put in a comment that also the book is also available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and Walmart's websites too. So, but I will say this though, if you want the signed copy, you got to go to my website, elijahlewis.org. So if you go to those other places, that's great, but I won't be able to sign it unless I see you in person. So if you want your signed copy of your Jewels in Your Journey, definitely go to my website, elijahlewis.org. And as Brother Miguel said, yep, there's my signature. So definitely go to my website for the signed copy. But yeah, just final words. I would just say, hey, brother, thank you for bringing me on the show. Anytime you want me to come back, I would love to come back. And, definitely I appreciate you letting me share my story, from the ICGJC, to just growing up to where I am today and about my book. And I'm glad that it inspires you a lot. And for some people who've read the book, like I want to shout out Sister Joni Sampson. She's read the book. She was a part of the study tribe group that we read my book that my dad and I were a part of. So
Yeah.
definitely, of course, want to shout out my dad too, because of course, like I talked about, without him, my father, Russell G. Lewis. So, and also real quick, my father has 2 books out himself. My father is in he's an insurance agent. He's also in a
Notary.
realtor. So he has 2 books out. One book is called How to Refinancing Your Home. The other book is How to Get the Best Home Purchase for Your Mortgage too. So definitely, hopefully maybe someday you can bring my dad on the show because
Oh yeah,
he
definitely.
he has his own stories from the ICJC too, but also he has a lot of intelligence and in his craft and in his field of profession too. So if you ever get a chance, definitely get a chance to support his books as well. But like I said, thank you for the opportunity. And one last thing I will say also, for those of you who do purchase my book, my godfather and I are doing this. Oh yeah, my dad said his links to my books are on my website too, so you can always go there to check out his information. But we're also doing a promotion where when we sell a copy of your Jewels in Your Journey, 22% of of the purchase that you make goes to helping veterans battling PTSD. We're by helping them get a service dog. That's something my godfather does for this company called Salute to Duty, which is also on my website, salutetoduty.com. But definitely, it's an initiative that we're taking because we're trying to put the focus on mental health as well. September was Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. So, every month is an opportunity to focus about mental health, but we definitely want to, help our veterans and those who are, battling any mental health issue, especially, those, like we talk about mental health, being in a cult and things like that. So mental health is very important. So it's something that we are doing with this. So just letting you know that when you do make a purchase of your Jewels in Your Journey, you are also helping a noble cause as well.
Definitely. That's wonderful to hear. I appreciate your time again. The book is Your Jewels Are in Your Journey. The man is Elijah Lewis. Thank you for coming through. I hope we get to do this again real soon, brother. Thank you.
Absolutely. And just thank you for the opportunity. And I want to wish you, brother, Abanawa Basham Yahweh Barakatah.
But now about Shem Yahweh Barakatah, brother.
That's an inside joke, little ICJC humor for us. That's some of the salutes they used to do for those of you who are not aware. But I just thought I'd mess with the brother a little bit. I ain't done that in about 15 years. So, but anyway, hey, brother, thanks again for the opportunity. Appreciate it. Love to come back on whenever you would have me. And just appreciate all the people who tuned in and for a great show. And just keep up the great work you're doing, brother. I'm very proud of you.
Thank you, man. All right, I appreciate you. So everybody knows I'm gonna put links in the description This is San Miguel TV. I appreciate the viewership. Thank you for watching, and we'll be back soon. Thank you. Peace out. All right, brother.
Yes,
Talk.
sir. Peace and
Have
blessings,
a good.
brother. Take care.
All right, later. Thank you.